Yeah, I'd say we okay. We'll keep doing this. Welcome, Chatham. Good evening. This is the August 22, 2023 meeting of the Select Board Community Forum number 1 concerning the Center for Active Living project. This meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording the meeting, please notify the chair. I'll pause momentarily to see if anybody is. Hearing none, I'll proceed. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29, 2023 signing of the Acts of 2023 extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, until March 31, 2025. This meeting of the Chatham Select Board is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 1-508-945-4410, conference ID 203-386-491#, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV, now Xfinity Channel 8 and 1070, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide real-time access. We will post a record of the meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. Let me start the meeting by ascertaining that we have a quorum present. Select Member Nicastro? Present. Select Member Davis? Present. Select Member Dykens? Present. And the Vice Chair is present. I note Mr. Metters is not present tonight. He had recused himself from these discussions, and I suspect that his absence is due to that and not to any other reason. I want to welcome everyone who's come out this evening to listen and inquire and discuss this subject. I think everybody's interest exhibits civic engagement, and it's well appreciated. I hope we can accomplish our purposes tonight with a minimal need for strict rules. I'd rather call them guidelines. Everyone will have an opportunity to speak and ask questions. We ask that you keep your remarks to 5 minutes or less, and we'll keep track of that in general. We ask that you observe the usual decorum that characterizes our public meetings, and we ask that you introduce yourself at the podium before making your remarks or asking your question. Other than that, I think we can proceed with a minimum of refereeing or other official interference. Our principal objective tonight is to provide a thorough briefing for the community with respect to all features of the proposed new Center for Active Living as it would be constructed at 1610 Main. We want to make sure everyone has received all available information on the subject of the cost of the building this facility. Indeed, this session was originally conceived as being responsive to a call issued in May by the Chronicle editorial, and I quote, to conduct a fine-toothed assessment of the cost using a professional estimator. That was their advice to the Select Board, and tonight we hope to answer that call. The first part of tonight's program will consist of a presentation by Joel Bargman, Chatham's architect for this project, and Rick Pomeroy, Chatham's owner's project manager, also for this project. And then following their presentation, we will open the floor for questions and comments from the public. This is intended to be an information session for the community. As such, we are expecting the Select Board to have only modest, very modest participation, if any, except to assist the process in the fashion of a moderator. Of course, we will respond to questions directed to us, and we will offer any comments that might be appropriate in the circumstances. And with that, I'm going to turn the floor and the microphone and the podium over to Joel and Rick. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you very much. We appreciate everybody coming out this evening and those folks that are on calls or online. My name is Richard Pomeroy, and I'm a principal at Pomeroy Associates, and we're the owner's project manager for this project. And with me is Joel Bargman from BH+A, our project architect. So what we'd like to do tonight is give you, as outlined earlier, a concise outline of where we're at this point. We're going to go through our project team and talk about costs and design. So first, we thought we'd spend some time and talk about the project team. BH+A, Joel Bargman, has been in the business for 30 years of public construction with over 150 projects, over 50 senior, community, and youth centers, many and most of which are in Massachusetts. They're experts in community engagement and collaborative design. With us remotely today, we have CHA, Bruce Jensen, and Bruce is a cost estimator with CHA, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about their process, their team, and how they go about evaluating a project at this level. CHA, formerly Daedalus, has been in the industry for over 30 years in the professional cost estimating industry, and they've been a consultant for BH+A, Joel specifically, for many projects, and that's why having that relationship between the estimator and the architect on multiple projects is very important, especially at this level. Also a part of our team, and I might add that our team has been the same team since day one in this project. They're all the same players. Coastal Engineering, Coastal will not be on at our meeting today, but they've handled all the civil, they're the civil, site, marine, and permitting consultant located in Orleans. I think most everybody knows Coastal Engineering. They've worked with Cape Cod communities and municipalities for over 50 years, and they've been a consultant for BH+A on a number of projects, including Falmouth, Sandwich, and Situate senior centers. It's a team that is familiar with one another. My firm, Pomeroy Associates, we've been owner's project manager for over 60 municipal projects over the last 20 years. The projects locally include Chatham Fire Headquarters, Chatham Track Dock Phase 1 and 2, Eldridge Public Library exterior renovations, and the Chatham Fish Pier Phase 2. Other notable projects, Cape and Islands, having a team that knows the Cape and Islands is very important. We've completed projects in Wellfleet, Orleans, Edgartown, Aquina, 3 projects in Brewster, 2 projects in Dennis, and 5 projects in Sandwich. So we're very proud of our team. We're very cohesive, and we work well together, and we've had a great track record working together. So what I'd like to do is turn it over to Joel. He will talk about our design, site, and so on and so forth, and we'll probably just bounce back and forth as we always do, and then we'll get into the costs.
Thank you. The CFAL really is designed around 5 principal points that I wanted to point out first as we get into the project, and later in showing you the floor plan, you can begin to see how these different components are delivered. The most important aspect to us is to have the senior center, the Center for Active Living, be sustainable over time. So energy efficient, but also easy to operate. And easy to operate means you can have volunteers working in your building. They can control the lights, they can control the temperature, they can control the kitchen, they can help out with staff needs. That all leads to an ongoing and successful building. So I'll show you some of those features as we go on. But in terms of delivering of services, one is seniors are active in lifelong learning in the arts, keeping intellectual stimulation and personal growth going, because basically Everybody wants to continue to age in place in Chatham or the community they live in, and that's one really good aspect of being able to remain in place. Wellness after the pandemic is even more of an issue, and wellness is two things. One is the delivery of pandemic-related shots like COVID shots, flu shots, other aspects of daily and seasonal health, but also you'll see in the multipurpose part of the building, there's the capability to have active fitness programs, particularly with this generation of seniors. That's a major component. The dissemination of information, SHINE, which I think a lot of people don't know what that means, but SHINE is the information about health insurance and the transition, as I'm sure most of you know here, from private insurance to Medicare is never an easy one, and that's really a process that senior centers have a tremendous assistance and capability to provide assistance in. And last, not least, is the socialization aspect. You'll see that the change in the design of the buildings is, I don't know if some of you have been to the new facility in Wellesley or facility in Sandwich. They have much larger lobbies, and the lobby isn't just for socialization, but they actually bring food into the lobby so that it's more like a cafe. It enhances that socialization, but I'll show you how it also gives you more program space inside the building, so that socialization sort of goes hand in hand. Okay, here's a site plan. We have 1610 Main Street is this light green rectangle. Here it's next to the Captain Harding Town Conservation Area, and so they're side by side, but the 1610 site comes down with the property line right here at this point. The building is located on the front quadrant of the property, giving it a frontage on the Main Street, which was highly sought by typical town planners because it defines the street edge as is done coming up the street with your adjacent buildings. It puts the minimal amount of parking up on the street and puts the majority of the parking behind the building. The entry to the site is on the west side of the building. You come in, there's 56 parking spaces on site. What's really nice is that from the far corners of the parking lot to the front door, and there's actually a front door here and a front door here, it's 125 feet. So 125 feet, you can imagine from here to the front door of this building, it's not really that far of a hike. From the side here to the front door, the far side is 85 feet, and all your handicap spaces or your accessible spaces are right here, and they're right in front of the building, easy to get in. I really like where the drop-off area is. It's not in front of the building where it's going to get in the way of the cars coming in and leaving the parking lot. It's over to the side and in front of that second entry. You'll see in the floor plan that both entries come into the same point. But this way, the van, the person dropping off, someone in a wheelchair, someone picking up, any type of delivery is sort of off to the side, out of the traffic zone. And what most folks do is they drop off someone that may be in a wheelchair or need assistance getting into the building, and then they go park into the building as opposed to parking and then trying to unload and do all that in the parking area. So having this bigger parking zone for the drop-off, I think is a really nice feature. And then that connects as a trailhead also to the conservation area. So if you want to drop off and hit the conservation land, that's also very accessible.
Mind if I add a few things?
Yes, sir.
So this property, a lot of this has been reported over the years, but I think it's important to reiterate or repeat. The property is 1.3 acres, about 58,000 square feet. We've done an extensive amount of due diligence on the site. It's been cleared from the natural, the NHESP, Natural Heritage. It's been mapped, and there's a priority habitat, which is classified as a pond edge vegetation. It's a smartweed and a Plymouth Terry, you can say it better than I can, but a gentian which is things that populate by the edge of ponds. So we're outside of that. NHESP has been notified, and they've confirmed that. As Joel mentioned, we have 56 spaces. 4 of those are handicap spaces. We also have communication with CCRT in transit, and they will provide access with a dedicated bus stop inside the site. We do have a retaining wall on the back side of the site that's been there. Part of our design is about 146 feet. We've looked at cast-in-place concrete. We've looked at modular block. The most efficient is a modular block, and that will provide our level access areas, as Joel had mentioned. Also, there was an extensive traffic study completed on this project several years ago that we've incorporated into our earlier presentations. And as part of that, we're planning on a right-hand exit only. So when people are leaving the site, they would be leaving and going right to avoid any congestion or traffic crossing. And then the person that wanted to go to the center of town would just go up to the next roundabout and then come back and around. So it eases the flow.
Excuse me, can we allow, please, them to complete the presentation, and then you'll have an opportunity to ask all your questions, multiple questions, whatever.
The purpose of showing you this drawing is
I'm sorry, Joel, I have to do one more thing. I apologize, folks. I got way too many papers. As part of our investigations, the geotechnical study has been completed on the site, and we have optimal soil conditions. As I said, the traffic study, we've also completed an environmental site assessment that provided us clearance for the site for any hazardous materials that may exist on site. We've minimal site grading and alterations. We've had a departmental review early on with the fire department and the DPW, and reviewed the plan, and there were no issues identified. We've had a preliminary coordination meeting with the planning board, and there were no issues. All we need to do is follow up as we proceed with our design. And so I think we've covered just about all the bases at this point in the project.
later on in the project, we're going to talk about the cost and answer questions about that. The purpose of showing you this drawing is folks have said how much information is available, and this is a sort of technical drawing that shows the 4 elevations of the building. You can see it's a residentially scaled building that has traditional windows and traditional siding. But what it's intended to do is to provide the cost estimator exact information about how much siding, what the trim is, where the columns are, what the windows look like, where the cupola is. That this feasibility study cost estimate is based on very detailed technical information. It happens to be a wood frame building, which is very easy and typical to provide a cost estimate of as well. You will see in this picture that it is a 2-story building. The 2-story building fits on the site very nicely. 2-story building has 50% less roof area. With the new energy code that went into effect on the 1st of July of this year, reducing that exposure reduces the heat loss out of the building and makes the compliance of the building with the new energy code all that much more readily available. But they will have high-performance windows, high-performance facade. That compact shape really will help to control and manage your energy costs, which, as I mentioned in the opening, creating a sustainable center financially is really a key aspect. This is a view of the front of the building, and the front of the building is actually on the back side of the building. So the front door faces the conservation area, and the reason being is that this corner is the administrative area. Here's one of the front doors. The other front door is on the other side. The administrative area is like a fulcrum. It has full 180-degree view of both parking lots, so all the staff that are in the administrative area can see folks coming to the building. If it's icy and someone slips in the wintertime, that will be noticed. You'll see there's other public spaces. There's the public lounge, I'll show you in the next picture, right here underneath this terrace. There's another deck on the upper level. They're designed for the nice views of the conservation area, but again, they're designed to put eyes on the area where people are coming in the building. So not only is it a functional, but it's a very safe environment for folks to come to. And this happens to also be that drop-off area that I mentioned. The scale of the building's low, purposely designed to look residential because a lot of the buildings adjacent to this are more of a residential scale property. As I go into the building, and this being the front door here, you would come to the lounge. And I mentioned that the lounge here is based on sort of a model that's developed, and I think for those that might come from the Boston area, Wellesley is quite well known for this development of this lobby idea. There's food and drink and areas to sit so that it's a very socialized space, but it's also a place where you can play cards. So it takes the card component out of private rooms and puts it in a more public space. It puts some of the food aspects into this lounge area. So now your multi-purpose room isn't tied up all day with 6 tables waiting for lunch and then waiting for someone to clean out the lunch, and you can't use your multi-purpose room after lunch. So the trend is to move meals out of the multi-purpose room. And if you go to Falmouth, you'll see how successful that is. They've taken that model on, and it's really exciting. It's like a cafe, a lot of activity going on, but the senior center staff isn't setting up tables, taking tables down. They're delivering services, and they're getting seniors in and out of the multi-purpose room for different activities. So it's a really great development idea. And I hope these are typical residential windows, typical, this is synthetic wood flooring, it's not natural wood. So it's very affordable and sustainable. This is a view from the other side of the parking lot. So here's that administrative fulcrum point that I mentioned. They have the director and her staff have full view of both sides of the building. This is the multi-purpose room. Multi-purpose room is fronting on Main Street, so the most public side of the building fronts the public street. And then your conservation area in the back is where that lounge is and where the decks are. So the more quiet, the deck is protected from the noise on Main Street by the building and has a nice view. And again, there's material changes, and you can see the cost estimator can put real numbers on the cost of this building. So I mentioned the multi-purpose room, and the problem that we have in many buildings is that these few tables are set up day long for a meals program that's used 45 minutes of the day. So what we're trying to do is get more throughput into the multi-purpose room, because now there's a dividing wall that will divide this room into 2 smaller rooms. So it's a 2,000 square foot room, 2 1,000 square foot rooms. It can be 1 exercise room, 1 lecture room, 1 music room, 1 movie room. It can be any number of different uses, but that's the heart and soul of the community CFAL. There you have the community multi-purpose room. Upstairs, I will get into that. This is the kitchen that supports that, the multi-purpose room and the downstairs area. So there's some active and administrative and program spaces on the second floor. This is above the multi-purpose room, your main smaller program room. It's about 800 or 900 square feet. It's accessed right next to the elevator. It looks out to the west, but it's a very flexible room. And again, sustainable programming. A lot of our centers now are sharing programs. So Sandwich may go online with Falmouth and have a joint program that can be delivered online, or you can connect with another senior center in some other part of the U.S. or some other continent if you like to. So it's a broadening out of the programming through technology. And Rick will show you, we've built into this program the technology budget to make this fully usable, not only during a pandemic, should another one occur, and you saw how well services could be delivered when the senior center had to adapt in 2020. It'll be even easier to do that with this new system that's built into the program. I think the past chairman once said the senior center runs through the belly of its customers. That's true. Our kitchens are designed to be like a residential kitchen. This is a fully commercial health department approved kitchen, but it looks like someone's kitchen. It has a window to the outside, it has a window to the multipurpose room, and it has appliances that you or I can use. So that's the point of making your building volunteer friendly, is that you don't have to hire a full-time chef to put together a men's morning breakfast club. They can go in, make their own breakfast, enjoy it wherever they want to in the building, and clean up. There's a residential dishwasher. It's very easy to use and operate, and it doesn't require a lot of skill.
So the cost estimates. CHA re-estimated this in the last month for us, and Bruce Jensen is on the call. So if we have any questions at the end with regards to the cost estimate or how it's established and the process that CHA follows, he's here to answer those for us. We've broken this cost estimate up into two components: the building and the site work. There's been a lot of discussion on site work, and there's been a lot of deliberation on it. So what we felt we would do is separate the two estimates and look at them. Combined, they make a full facility, but it provides us a little bit more detail. We've also outsourced the design, Coastal's design, to a local contractor and asked them to give us an opinion of value for the site work. And the numbers between the estimate that CHA performed and the local contractor, who has an extensive amount of experience on the Cape, we're very close. We're very pleased with that result. So we've tested this in many different directions, and you'll see by our budgets and our cost estimates as they move, the numbers have gone up a little bit since we presented in March, and they continue to go up. There's nothing we can do to avoid that. So you'll see that this evening in our presentation. So we might just go to that. So in this slide, we're providing you the information that was provided back in 2020, which is the estimate on the far left, 2021, which was an opinion without a full estimate. This was just a refresh of the estimate. Then there was a full estimate completed in March of 2023, and then another one completed just a couple of weeks ago by CHA. The numbers are broken down, as you'll see, the building construction and site. We've also added an escalation factor to midpoint of construction, which is an industry standard these days, especially with what we've been experiencing with equipment and manpower shortages since COVID. So the escalation factors are a little bit higher than what we would normally see on a year-to-year basis. So the total construction cost of, after the escalation factor, of $8,772,173, which is $800 a square foot. It seems like a big number, doesn't it? But the reality of the situation is that that's where the numbers are coming in these days. Both Joel's firm and our firm, we're bidding projects on a regular basis, and we're keeping track of those numbers, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. We also have our owner's development cost. Those have not changed since March. We have the architect, the OPM, furniture, furnishings, and moving cost, the AT, the AV and IT and the Wi-Fi, our geotechnical soils investigations and surveys. We've already completed the investigations, but we need the geotech on board during construction until we get to the point where we start laying our foundations. Well, utility company back charges, printing services, and construction material testing. It's a pretty tight soft cost budget. At the bottom, we've also added in an owner's contingency of 5%. And at our last March meeting, we had recommended an additional 2.5% because of where we see the industry going at this point. The owner's contingency items are there for unforeseen conditions and changes that the client may want to make during construction. And so the goal is, if you don't have to spend the owner's contingency, you don't. It's not there to spend. It's there as a safety net if something goes wrong with your budget up above or the client wants to add something in. We're very proud of our track record, and I know Joel is as well. We don't have projects come in over budget. The reason for that is we put together achievable expectations right up front. They're conservative, there's no doubt, but the whole goal is to provide the town, the community, the municipality with an achievable budget within reasonable standards. So the contingencies are there as a safety net. Goal is not to spend them, and you'll see in a lot of our future or past projects, you're turning back money at the end of the job. So the total cost at this point is just under $11 million, $10,961,961. We've also added, and we'll talk a little bit about this afterwards in our presentation, we've added two alternates that can be handled at bidding, or the community can just decide to include it into the base bid. But trying to create an emergency evacuation shelter option within the facility, which would be a great benefit for the community. The first alternate would be just adding in or changing 2 bathrooms upstairs and making them companion shower areas for $36,700. And the second alternate would be to add in a storage room on the second floor, and we can go through that during the design. But the storage room is a nice feature to have for cots, for animal crates, the types of things that you would not be using on a regular basis that you'd like to store away. In the event of an emergency, they're there for you, rather than storing them off-site at a different location and bringing them in a pod or something along those lines. So we just wanted to design that in, but we can get through that. We'll ask any questions you have at the end, but we thought what would be helpful for you, I think I had mentioned early on that there's an extreme value that you have if you have a cost estimator who is very familiar with an architect. And so what we have here is some examples of some bid versus estimate values for projects that Joel and CHA have worked on. And as you'll see, there are some variations between the differences, but everything is under budget or under estimate. Some are greater than others. But the goal is to, as we'll talk about later on, the goal is, when you're estimating, not to estimate it for the low bidder. The goal is to estimate it for that middle bidder, so that you have an opportunity to build your project. There's one number here that I think would really pop out at you, and that's the Sandwich Center for Active Living at 16.9%. And there's a good reason for that. That's a project that Joel and I finished together, a very successful project, but it was being bid right at the kickoff of COVID, and we didn't know where the numbers were going to fall. So what we did was we developed a lot of value engineering options, and rather than having them in the bid, because you don't want your bid to be too complicated, we cut a lot of things out. And our presentation to the town was, let's cut them out now. And then if the bids come in where we think they're going to come in, we can add them back in, and we'll negotiate on the town's behalf with the contractor. So we were 16.9 below estimate, but we added back in over $1 million worth of improvements, and the town is extremely pleased. If anybody's been able to go by and see that facility, it's very dynamic. So this is the the track record that Joel and CHA have, which I think is a very valuable component to this discussion this evening.
If I can just add one thing to that, when you have the detailed cost estimate, it provides a roadmap for the architects to draw to. So we're no longer at the point of trying to figure out what it's going to cost. We have in hand these estimates. If this project's approved, we use the estimates to follow through. Here's how much tile we have available, and here's a price for that tile. And to assure the clients, this being a public sector project, the way the contracts are written for the architect is that it's incumbent on us to hit your number. And if we don't hit your number, it's incumbent on us to rebid it at our expense to make it come in at the number that's been advertised. So the risk is on the design team, and so the design team is going to be very diligent along with the town about being rigorous with the cost designs.
Right. The next slide is just an example of the level that things have gone through. Joel's team put together a list of all of the technology components that we would need for the facility, big screen displays and TVs with sound bars. And the numbers that are presented here are basically state bid quotes. State bid, you can purchase these things right off the state contract. So it's there and available for anybody to see. But so this information is included in the budget that we just showed you. I just wanted to show you the level of detail that's gone into to identify the cost as best as possible for the project. That's the same thing was carried through for furniture. A little bit more items, a few more items there in more detail, but we feel we've got everything covered.
I'll quickly go through the floor plans, a little drier information. It is a 10,900 square foot building. As I mentioned, it's on 2 stories. It's a fully electric, fossil fuel free building. The fact that it's built out of wood is partly, that's really good on Cape Cod because there's a lot more competition for wood carpenters. Wood is also tends to be less expensive than steel and concrete. But wood is an absorber of carbon, whereas concrete and steel emit carbon into the environment. So in this idea of bringing a very sustainable building to the community, we're looking at every aspect that's possible in that category. The building's fully sprinkled, it's fully alarmed, and that's important because it's a 2-story building. And I'll jump to the second floor, which I know I'm going to have a lot of questions about. The adult supportive day program is in this back corner of the second floor. So people are going to say, why are you on the second floor? The main issue that we have in design, well, first of all, it's not a medical model. We don't have people with severe Alzheimer's or dementia or other disabilities. This is the early stages of those types of problems. But the biggest issues that we have is not getting them out in case of a fire, because with the sprinkled building, those issues have been primarily mitigated. The issue is wandering and elopement. And on the ground floor, when someone with slightly impaired memory care sees a door, they think that exit sign's telling me to go out that door. That's not telling me to go out in an emergency, it's telling me to go out now. And they will wander or leave the site, and then the staff have to call the fire or the EMT to rescue them if they get off site, and that triggers a whole series of events of, I'm sure that some of you know, they have to go to the emergency room and get checked out, and it's a cost burden that even though insurance pays for it, you have a deductible amount. So the trick is to find the right place in the building that's safe for your supportive care program. And we conveniently located it near a stair, and it's within 40 feet of the elevator. And the elevator's on a generator. The generator operates the entire building. So if you lose power in Chatham, everything in the building will be functional, including the elevator. Folks can either go down the elevator and get out the building. They can go down this back stair. And I will say that this is a solution that has been accepted in many senior centers, CFA, Centers for Active Living, that we've done to put it sort of in a more safe location. The ground floor has this multi-purpose room. That's that 2,000 square foot room. That's 2 rooms. There's the active corner that the administrative staff can see what's going on. Here's your nice lounge, and then the program room is on the second floor with some more support space. The trend, because of that nice kitchen and because of the wonderful multi-purpose room, and then we have the program rooms upstairs, is these buildings can be transformed into an emergency evacuation shelter, which meets FEMA emergency management protocols for a safe, accessible congregate care facility that will tide you over for 1, 2, and up to 3 days time in the event that there's a storm and power goes out in town or some other emergency. I won't go through all the requirements, but Rick pointed out there's an alternate. To have a shelter, you do need a shower. We put 2 showers in as the alternate. And to have a shelter that's really functional, you need cots and blankets, and we built in a room as an option to go into the building should the town decide. And then the feeding and logistics, you can't bring in food if there's an emergency because trucks may not be able to get there. So you need food supply, and that kitchen is designed to serve the full complement of folks that may be able to be in the building in an emergency. So on the ground floor, we could have up to 100 users in that multi-purpose room. Typically, we plan for about 50 to 60 users to give more space for those that might be in wheelchairs or in cots. And then we have another multi-purpose room, program room on the second floor that could have up to 47 folks. But again, we would plan on about 30 folks. So you could easily have 50 to 70 to 80 people in this building should you decide to go into this direction. And we added, as an alternate, a shower to the bathrooms that were already on this level. These are the companion bathrooms where you can go in and help your spouse with whatever needs are in the restroom facility. And on here, this corner is the storage room that Rick mentioned. So that's the $66,000 option, and here's your $36,000. The only change that does to the outside of the building is it extends the gable roof 7 feet further towards Main Street. So it's a very simple, and the reason it's so inexpensive is you already own the floor. You're just extending the roof out and building a little bit more wall. So we have that as an option should the town decide to go to that. So it took a long time. Let me just quickly summarize that. I think the whole goal of our experience is how do we let people live the way they want to in the community that they belong in. And that's the purpose of a Center for Active Living, physical, mental, and socialization. And I like to point out that a healthy population of seniors is beneficial to everybody. It's not just beneficial to the seniors, but it reduces the services and the wear and tear on the town, staff, better health, better wellness, better dispensing of flu shots, pandemic-related shots. All that is really a benefit for all. And that's not just confined to seniors, but at Sandwich, the whole town goes into the senior center for the dispensing of flu shots and COVID vaccines. So I won't read the whole chart, but again, our message is that a healthy senior population is good for a healthy community, and the CFAL leads to that. And
Mr. Chairman, before we get into questions from the audience, I'm wondering if it would be healthy to have Bruce Jensen speak from CHA to talk about the process that their firm goes through during the cost estimating. Is that?
I think that'd be excellent. Thank
Okay,
you.
Bruce, are you available for us?
I am. Can you hear me?
Excellent. I think so,
Beautiful.
yeah. Now, Bruce, would you just walk us through your team, how you approach your projects, and who gets involved with what? And what I think is really important is how often you're refreshing your information and the process that you follow doing that.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Bruce Jensen, representing CHA Cost Estimating Services.
Bruce, excuse me for one second. I might ask you to speak up a little bit or put your mic a little closer to your mouth.
Oh, it's right next to me. Is that a little bit better?
Can everyone hear? Good. Thank you.
All right. So our process here, and we've been working with Joel and his team for a long time on many different projects, as was previously stated. I'm the lead certified estimating professional on the project. We have a multidisciplinary team made up of specialists in MEP, so mechanical engineering and plumbing, site work, which would be myself, architectural, concrete and masonry specialists on the team. And we go through and look, as Joel said, we take detailed takeoff off of the plans that are given to us by the design team. We also impart our knowledge from previous projects and experience, which our cost estimating team produces roughly about $4 billion in cost estimates per year. We produce upwards of 250 estimated projects per year. So we really like to dive in and really take advantage of working with the design team to produce very cost efficient estimates and also very accurate cost estimates to make sure that the projects are bid at the level that they need to be bid at, and make sure that the bids come in where they need to be.
Thank you, Joel. Can you talk a little bit about how you back up your estimates after the bids are received? Because not only are they estimating it prior to bidding, but after it's estimated, after it's bid, that information is extremely valuable to the estimator and to the entire team.
Yes, so we have a large database of historical data from many projects here in the active living centers, and also we turn out about 2 estimates per week in the Massachusetts public market. So we have a large depth of historical cost data. We also leverage our relationships with our sub-vendors and general contractors who we talk to, and we can bounce ideas off of to ascertain current pricing, which has been very helpful during the COVID era, I will call it. So we stay up to date with costs. Also, we follow projects through completion. So we also deal with change orders on projects, and those give us live information on what the market is, what the current market rates are determining for any given trade.
That's excellent. Now I'm gonna throw a real curveball at you. It's the E word, escalation, which is a highly contested opinion throughout the industry. Can you talk a little bit about that and how you gauge your escalation factors?
Sure. So first we'll start on this project. We are carrying about the 9% mark from now until midpoint of construction. Throughout COVID, we have really seen about anywhere between 6.5% to 8% increase across the board, depending upon specific trades. And right now, we are projecting over the next year about 6.5% escalation, and then 5.5% for the year after, and then hopefully we're getting back down to about 4.5% escalation more out there, 2026 and beyond.
Thank you. Hang tight. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more questions. Mr.
I'll be
Chairman.
here.
Thank you very much. I think that's very helpful. I'm going to assume this is going to be a participatory audience, so I will invite questions, comments. If we could ask you, Joel and Rick, to sort of make way at the podium to begin with. If folks would like to comment or inquire, whatever, maybe you could queue up to the podium. And then in the meantime, I'll ask the IT staff. We have the capacity to put another microphone here in the aisle, and maybe they can put another microphone that people could queue up there as well. So folks are welcome to inquire, ask, comment, whatever you would like to do. Mr. Stribert, would you like to start?
Sam Stribert, I'm an architect here on town. I've served on some design review committees, one for this building, for the police station, and for the fire station. So I'm familiar with the process, and many people may not understand the bidding laws, Massachusetts bidding services laws, and I'd like to, Rick, if he would take a moment to explain why we don't get a bid from these plans and proceed. Why do we have to go with an estimate? Some people were concerned in the last town meeting that we were going in without knowing what it was going to cost, because escalations go crazy. And that was a big fear factor, and it was totally false. So Rick, if you would.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Sam, as always, you caught me again. Thank you. Chapter 149, I thank you. That was on my list to talk about tonight, and I skipped right over it. This is a municipal project, and because it's funded by taxpayer dollars, it has to follow what's called Chapter 149, bidding and procurement laws. It's very rigid, and it's by state statute. Every component of the project has to be bid. It has to be bid publicly, and each contractor has to carry a DCAM certification, which is regulated by the state. So when we bid this project, we just don't put it out and get a lump sum bid. It takes two steps. The first step is we have filed subbids. And the filed subbids are generally categories of about 15 different contractors, and they range from electrical, plumbing, heating and mechanical or HVAC, fire protection, painting, you name it. Each one of those trades has to be bid separately. Once those bids are received, they are tabulated, qualified, and then those bids, the numbers and the contractors are provided to the general contractors. And the general contractors, then there's certain components of the project that are not under the filed subbid laws, so the general contractor would be carrying those things like site work, foundations, and other framing, things like that. So the contractor will take all of the filed subbids, and they will choose which bid they want to accept from each category and which contractor they want to work with, and then they will assemble their overall bid and submit that to the town. We don't have an option of selecting any one of the general contractors. We have to take low bid. It's regulated by the state, unless that contractor does not meet the qualifications that we've set forth in the bid documents. But 9 times out of 10, or if the contractor is extremely low, or there seems to be an issue with the bid, we'll try to qualify that. But it's a very regulated process, so you can't just go out on the street and say, okay, give me a number. You have to follow those procurement guidelines. Is that?
Yeah, please, go ahead.
The thing I think people miss is that no contractor would bid a project that hadn't passed the town meeting step. So there's no way to get bids before town meeting. Because why would a contractor put all that work into producing a price when the town could vote it down? It's totally wasted. So that's why the town manager, the project manager and the architect spend so much time working with a qualified cost estimator to assure the town that they have followed through with every cost item step by step. So.
Thank you. The floor is open. And you can use Ms. Timpson, if you'd like to speak.
Okay, if I go over there.
No, you can go to the podium if you like.
My eyesight's not so hot. There's more light over here. Thank you all for years of effort on this subject. My name is Ann Timpson. I'm a senior resident of Chatham, and my family and I have owned property in this town for 71 years. We care deeply about the future of Chatham and are in favor of a better senior facility. We thank all of you for your efforts toward that goal. However, our concern remains on the size, the site, and the constructural cost and long-term maintenance cost. I have a few questions. If I ask a question, is it better for somebody to answer it before going through all these questions?
Why don't you ask the questions and we'll figure out how we
Okay,
do it,
fine.
if we can.
Got it.
We'll do our best.
I'll go quickly. Number one, if 1610 vote in September is successful and an RFP is sent out and results in several bids in excess of the 11 million approved in the ballot question on May 11th, from where will this board fund the excess? For example, say the lowest bid is 15 million. We are still concerned about the concept of our tax increase. Can anyone answer that?
I would say Joel or Rick or both of them had some comments that addressed it. Why don't you have a crack at it, one of you or both of you?
Do you want to be here?
So the project that's voted on in the town for the money that Rick pointed out in the budget, which was the total project cost, is the number that we contractually have to meet for the town. So if the project does come in over budget, it has to be redrawn to come in below
I
budget
see.
at
Thank you.
our cost, not your cost.
While you're standing right there.
Yes, ma'am.
But there's one other question. Interesting about the contract where you are carefully watching over the bids so that they align with the contract bids and the individual parts and pieces that come together to make 1610. Say a tile, say the person who is going to install the floor says that there's a new price on the floor and it's a third more. What happens? Do you then come back and look for some other product that would fill the bill? How do you work that out? I understand you take in a series of bids and that part, but what if it's the product that causes the issue?
When the contractor submits his bid, he's bidding it on the specification, and he has to deliver that specification. It's incumbent on them to make their deals with their subcontractors locked in at the time of the bid acceptance so that they can't come back later and say the tile's more expensive. So they're locked into that bidding
Thank you.
number.
There's one other, let me ask it quickly, number two. There is a draft of operational costs, which a lot of us have asked for. It's in draft form now, but I was able to get it through Alex. And based on my research, comparing operational costs at the new CO building in Falmouth, designed by the Barkman firm, with a total square footage of 17,000 square feet. The projected cost for electricity for 1610 in this operational draft cost estimate in 2026 appears unrealistically low. Electricity cost in Falmouth Center for the year 2023 was 42,000, and I assume that's with heat pumps, correct?
It's a VRF system, that's correct.
Same
yeah.
kind of system. That is a real, not an estimated cost. Our draft estimate for 1610 electricity in 2026, hopefully when the building would be done, is $13,455. Even with the smaller square footage plan for 1610, there is no question this seems inaccurate based on our private residential electric bills, which have skyrocketed in the last year and will continue to climb as green regulations are enforced. There is mention of solar panels. Have the cost of those panels and their implementation and yearly maintenance been included in these update numbers tonight?
The building's designed to be solar ready, but the cost of the panels is not included because it's not clear exactly how that might be paid for. Most of the buildings we're doing have a contract agreement where the town doesn't pay for the solar panels. They get the benefit of the energy savings of the panels, but they don't have to purchase those. I don't know if
Do they
Rick
have,
can
is there a labor cost?
Pardon me?
Is there a installation cost?
No, that's covered by the person.
Sorry, can we pause? We're having a technical difficulty with our remote feed, as I understand it, so we want to give the IT staff a chance to reconnect the viewing public. Thank you for your patience.
Is that state, part of it is state funded?
Usually the solar is provided by a vendor who provides the equipment and the installation, and the town gets a certain proportion of the savings. From that, they split it with the vendor. They don't have to pay for it up front, and it's what most of our clients are doing. They're not buying because then they have a contract agreement, and then when
And
in 10
then
years,
does that
someone
company
can-
service them as well?
that's correct, yeah.
So it's
We've lost our
not-
Teams connection. They're rebooting, and we should be back up and running here in a few minutes.
Got it. You might, are we back on?
No, we're not. So if you can just, we won't charge you with the time that we're waiting here.
This isn't my favorite place to be up here. I was just looking here. I must chat. What's
We
interesting-
the operation thing has municipal rates for electricity on it, which in Chatham are quite a bit different than the residential rates. Terry
Right,
might be
no,
able
I
to tell you.
understand that. I do understand. It was more that the estimate
Well,
was way
we're 10,900 square feet versus 17,000 plus.
But-
This is under the new energy code, which has 2 inches of exterior insulation on the whole building, thicker
based
roof
on
insulation.
not Falmouth, doesn't have.
Falmouth is on the previous code, so we have a much more stringent code. So
Tell them that.
I did.
Yeah.
So you have higher window values, higher wall values, higher roof values, all designed to
Right.
reduce.
Then can I ask you, you know that it looked like, well, I'm pretty sure Falmouth has a basement, and this was
Has a what?
a basement for
Yes, it
storage.
does have a basement.
Is that, how many, if you had to approximate the square footage of the basement, what is it?
There's a storage room down there about 1,000 square feet.
That's what I figured.
Yeah.
So it's more like kind of 16.
Well,
Rather
there's
than
nothing in the
17.
basement, it still has lighting, sprinklers, heating, cooling,
It does,
lights.
that's so,
It's
okay.
all finished.
Okay, the whole works. Okay, well, that helps. I mean, it's sort of like 60%. All I was saying was that I think there is too much to
Well,
frankly.
that's your entitled to the opinion. The whole point of the building is to, with the new energy code, is to reduce how much energy you need because we're putting all the stress on the energy grid.
It's only the cost that hurts. All the other parts good. But, I mean, the chairman was in when they were talking about the work of the draft, which is still in the draft operation. He said, this is about the same.
What? It's better than
Their estimate for 1610 was the same as his
I
house.
might have a pretty big house.
Not that big. So that's what, so that's what we worry about. I mean, I've seen it in New Jersey. So reasonable down there where, you know, near New York City, it was almost as good as having Connet. The other
There's always
thing,
a reason to say no. I mean, I think you're trying to get over the finish line here. If you don't do it now,
you're not part of that. It's the cost of
thing that was so frustrating to me as we started is the same thing as Falmouth being built their building for $7 million.
Okay. I'm told we're back up and running. So if we could come to order. So I think we were on your third question. If we could wrap up the with respect to electricity and solar panels, and then you've consumed your 5 minutes. You can come back, but for now,
Thanks.
you've consumed your 5 minutes.
I was wondering if Terry might want to just mention the electrical rates
Sure.
for the, or should I go ahead? They're municipal rates are
ahead.
included in the operational costs, not residential rates.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Anybody? Yes, ma'am. Please.
Hi there, my name is Joanne Goodman. My husband and I are longtime summer people, and we hope down the road to be here in Chatham full-time. I think this presentation was so professionally done, really impressive, but I'm wondering, it seems like a lot of time and effort and town time has been spent on a project that has already been rejected several times by the citizens of the town. And I just find that very curious. I'm also wondering, now, I read the Chronicle online when I'm not living here, and so I might have missed a few details, and if I've missed, and if I haven't understood, I just apologize. I think it's very generous of Mr. Marsh to donate this land in honor of his dear mother. Very sweet of him. He drove down our lane this morning, and I didn't recognize him, but I recognized his license plate, and I almost flagged him down to ask this question. Very generous of him to donate the land, but why only earmarking it for a senior center? I assume there could be other options for the land, like a beautiful park. Someone wrote a letter to the editor in this week's Chronicle that suggested that a beautiful park in honor of his mother. I'm a dog owner. I go to a dog park with my dog when I'm back where I live in the winter. There's not a dog park in Chatham. It could be a playground. It could be maybe daycare center for the young, hardworking families in Chatham. I'm just wondering, it could be even maybe space for affordable housing. I don't know why the two things, the donation and the use, are so tied together. Also, in terms of the bidding, I understand that's a process. A lot of people can be involved. Anybody can bid, but Mr. Marsh is a builder. And I'm wondering, you know, ultimately, is he going to be the builder? I know that's to be seen. I was raised, my sisters and I were raised to only buy what you absolutely need and to reuse things and to make do with things. And I'm just wondering, when the town does have some, maybe not 100% used spaces, like the community center, and with the dwindling population of the elementary school-age children, you know, with that, with the Chatham Elementary School, it's a one-story building, there's plenty of parking right across the street from the fire department. If that could be another alternative. So thank you for letting me speak up. Appreciate it.
Thank you for that. We've said this is for the community. There's one aspect of your question that I think Shireen can answer because she was here, participated, and it's logical. Some of the other stuff is a much longer history that frankly may well come up again at our September 12 meeting as to how we got where we are and how we either eliminated or selected various sites over other sites. But Shireen, do you want to address the question about why
Sure.
Mr. Marsh designated this for the senior center?
Thank you, Ms. Goodman, for your questions and your concern about this particular part of the project. When I was chair of the select board, we had started to put out, we were looking for land for senior center as one of the options for where we could place a senior center. It was part of our scope of different ideas that we were kicking around. And so a bid went out, a request for proposal went out, and Mr. Marsh came back with an offer, a response to that request for proposal. The request for proposal was specific to the senior center. It was, we were looking for a site to place a senior center. So when we did that, that's how that happened. Consequently, can't remember the original offer, what his bid offer was, but it was for a substantial amount of money. And in having conversations with him throughout the process, it was around Thanksgiving of a few years back, during the first part of it, that he had conversations with his family. His kids were in town and his mom, and they encouraged him to donate the land to Chatham. And he did specify, and it is in the agreement, that it is to be used for a senior center. And it hasn't been clear to me, though his intention is to honor his mother and his father, that he just wanted a simple little plaque inside the wall. But we were very grateful for his offer. And so that's where that is at this point. The agreement says, that it's a donated property for use to be built for a senior center. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Mott.
Hi, I'm Dave Mott, resident of Chatham. Just a number of questions, and I'm sure either the OPM or the architect can answer some of these, but, and this would probably go to the estimator as well. I'm just curious whether the cost of insurance and bonding of the project has been factored in, and if so, where in the cost is that?
Yes, so I could take that one. The cost for insurance and bonding is included within the construction costs overall. Insurance, bonding, markups are all included there.
What kind of profit margin for the contractor, the general contractor, did you allocate in the cost?
So That would be 4%.
Okay. And was there an allocation in the costs for the mobilization and logistics? Working on the Cape was significantly more difficult than many of the other examples that you've included in your package?
Yes, we have taken into account that these rates include mobilization for each and all the trades.
Looking at the sandwich reference that's in the package, I thought that project has significantly increased in cost. I know that's not just a senior center. I think it's a community center as well. And last I read, that cost is up to $16.5 million. Is that correct?
I have not prepared those numbers for this meeting.
Okay. Just bookmark that for the future. And do you have any idea what percentage of local contractors are being used in Sandwich?
That would be a question for the OPM team.
Anyone?
Yeah, hold on.
Sure.
If I may.
Yeah.
I can go back and check on the final sandwich construction value. I think what you're reporting to is the total project cost,
Yeah.
not the general contract. So that's a little misleading by stating that. So I hope you can appreciate that.
I can.
Okay. And as far as the percentage of Cape contractors, I can provide that information. I don't have that offhand. But we cannot decide whether it's a local contractor or a Cape or a off-Cape contractor. It's by the bidding laws, we can't discriminate from one to the other. But
I wasn't suggesting that you do. I was just curious because that obviously factors into the contractor's bids if they have to deal with the logistics of coming on Cape every day and whatnot. Obviously, if they're using local labor, that's something a little bit different. That's the reason for my question.
Well, I think that what we could do is I'd love to spend some time with you and show you, the different contractors that you would consider local labor as compared to not local labor. And we could use the fire headquarters as an example. I'm not sure we had any local labor other than the site contractor. Everybody else was off Cape, and that project was successfully bid and under budget. So the contractors are in the business of doing business. When they bid in these projects, they want to be low bidder. They take into consideration the bridge, but it's not as impactful as you would think for, say, Nantucket or Martha's Vineyard. People are doing business on the Cape every day. I'm off Cape. I'm here every day. So I don't think that it is a factor, but I don't think it's as big a factor as you might expect.
Okay.
Want me to stay?
I don't know. The final question I had is you mentioned that you consulted with a local contractor as far as validating the estimate. I was curious who that was.
That was Diggett Construction.
I'm sorry, say again.
Diggett? Yes.
Okay, I'm unfamiliar with them. And so anywhere in the budget, is there an allocation for any kind of security system for the new building?
Yes, there is.
Okay, and where does that appear? Is that in technology?
I think it's covered on the electrical estimate
Oh, it's
component.
under the elect. Okay, good.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all I got.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, do you want to take a question from someone on?
Oh, yes, thanks for, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
We have somebody online. It is
It looks like it's Ms. Gibbs.
Ms. Gibbs, and then you, Mr. Waters, after that.
Thank you. Elaine Gibbs. I would like to address the emergency evacuation shelter. I'm very pleased, after 5 years of trying to get the town to keep the doors of the municipal building open in the event of a natural or man-made disaster, before all power and communications are lost, and that staffing is apparently no longer an issue. I've never heard of an emergency evacuation shelter in any of the prior presentations. But it is what we've been asking for, and I'll take it. But not at 1610 for a number of reasons. I recognize the select board and staff believe that by finally offering an overnight shelter for the community at large, most people will vote for the COA, or at least more will. But I think it's clear 1610 is not the right location. The building design is not conducive to a shelter. Any evacuation shelter should not just be incidental and subsidiary, as it's been labeled here, but an integral part of any municipal building, separately stocked with water, full meals, and medical supplies, which can be set up quickly and smoothly and in advance. It has to be the right building design and the right location. The two-story design of 1610 and the size of the two designated common rooms of only 3,000 square feet would require more staff and limit capacity. The state recommends a facility that can handle at minimum 3 to 5% of the town's population. Based on the 2020 census of 6,500, that would be 195 to 310 potential users. This design only allows a maximum of 80 actual accommodation. Worst case, excuse me, I'm sorry, robocalls. Worst case, 147 on the 2 floors, if only allowing 20 square feet per person. With only 3,000 square feet of total usable common area, I'm really sorry. It'd be 20 square feet per person with only 3,000 square feet of total usable common area. If the primary users are disabled or use mobility devices or have service animals, which would require 100 square feet per person, it might only accommodate 30 to 50 people total in the entire building. With respect to showers that are a requirement, there is only space at 1610 for 1 shower per 72 people, and both are on the 2nd floor. In my view, that's not sufficient for sanitary reasons. In terms of pets, the proposed location for the pets is on the 2nd floor's proposed adult daycare room. Guidelines require that pets have easy access to the outdoors for sanitary reasons, or as an alternative, washable floors with a drain. This design has neither. I think it's really impractical to require elevators or staircase usage by animals. In terms of isolation, there have to be isolation areas provided in the event a user may have a communicable illness. There is no room for that possibility if it is fully occupied with the 80 people. Parking in 1610 is insufficient with only 56 spaces. During a blizzard, I go back to 2 years ago when we had no power for 6 days in the blizzard and the conditions. During a blizzard, continued snow removal would be required, piled up in the parking lot. Spaces on either side of the entrance would be reduced in size to allow for plows and emergency vehicles, reducing available parking for users and staff significantly below the 56 spaces. 1610 is 2 miles from the fire department in the event of a medical emergency in bad weather. The purpose of a town evacuation shelter is to be able to set up ahead of time prior to an impending storm, which would require closing down the COA for its normal use. The proposed storage on the 2nd floor, in my view, is insufficient and an inconvenient location. Existing storage at 1610, as if I read the diagrams correctly, is only 110 square feet. All the extra chairs and tables need to be put away, exchanged for 100 plus cots, blankets, towels, water, meals, and supplies. Difficult when the only storage would be on the 2nd floor. I don't believe the additional proposed storage space could accommodate those supplies required or the existing furniture. That's why shelters are traditionally located in community centers and schools with gymnasiums, with plenty of storage, space for 5% of the population, and necessary square footage for cots, individuals with disabilities, isolation areas, easy outdoor access for pets, with plenty of parking near a fire station. With the permanent generator going into the community center next week, and staffing is apparently not an issue since it's been proposed, this exercise has been a huge leap in opening the doors of the community center. We now have identified a local overnight shelter program that is both doable and reasonable in cost. I ask that this proposal be taken off the table tonight. It should not be held out to voters as a potential benefit of this location when it cannot meet the standards and the capacity required for Chatham residents in the event of a natural or human disaster. We need a permanent long-term short-term solution, and I believe that the 1610 is not the place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Gibbs. I just want to say that and you will probably take this with a grain of salt, but in the beginning of the conversation with the architectural and OPM team, the recognition was there that this perhaps presented an opportunity if we were going to go forward with the suggestion of, with reconsidering 1610, the CFAL at 1610. We wanted to know what would be involved and how expensive would it be to add this, this feature. You've seen what that is. You can believe it or not, but it had nothing to do with whether it was going to solicit votes or anything else. It was something that was recognized to be, as you said yourself, a request that the community has expressed many, many times over 5 years. So I just wanted to make that clear. Having said that, that process of developing this option was done in consultation with Chief Tavano, and he's at the podium, and I'd like him to address some of the requirements and feasibility factors that you expressed, Ms. Gibbs.
Sure. Thank you. Good evening, folks. Chief Justin Tavano from the Fire Department. I also serve as the Emergency Management Director for the town. I'll just say, you know, this concept was brought to me from a feasibility standpoint to see what might be required, how we could possibly modify the building, and really just simply would it even be feasible. We take a lot of our guidance from MEMA, FEMA, organizations like the Red Cross, who are really in the business of sheltering. And you know, the numbers that they put out there, they're industry standards. They're not necessarily regulations or law. They give us benchmarks, and they give us direction on where we can start. Ms. Gibbs, thank you for your comments. There was a lot packed in there. I certainly can't address all of it, but just a few things that did stick out to me. I do want to say, you know, from a planning standpoint and a looking at the future standpoint for the town, for essentially what amounts to a 1% cost increase on the project, I think it's a wonderful idea to build that resiliency for the town and offer some redundancy from services that we already provide, whether it be locally or regionally. Other towns do use centers for active living for this purpose. As far as the setup and the storage, the part of the cost alternate was to build that storage area into the design, which would provide some areas for cots and some pet crates and other supplies. Certainly, that's a much easier setup than what many of the regional shelters use now, which is putting equipment in pods, which can sometimes be a quarter to a half mile away from where the equipment's actually going to be used. In terms of planning for potential residents that need shelter, what we looked at is the emergency evacuation shelter route, which is really a 72-hour shelter. It's really to give immediate shelter for folks post-impact, whether it's a storm or any other type of event that would require sheltering for folks. MEMA does, in fact, use the 3 to 5% of the population as a guide. I have consulted many times in the past with our partners with Barnstable County Emergency Management, with MEMA, with the Red Cross, and they said that, you know, the number's really not very realistic for many municipalities to use, and it's not on paper, but what I was told is that best practice is to focus more on about 1 to 2%, which these numbers really fall right within that realm. The pet area, you know, the plans that you looked at tonight on where the dormitory would be set up versus the pet shelter, they were really just kind of schematic. They were hypothetical. We haven't really got down into the nitty-gritty on where things might be located on site. So certainly, as we saw with the floor plans, these are big open areas that lend themselves to being modular and using different areas for different functions. And lastly, as far as, the two-floor concept, we did ensure that this was a full building generator and the elevator would be functional, so that would allow for seamless transition between the two floors. I tried to address a number of your concerns. I'm not sure I got all of them, but if there's any follow-up, I'm here.
Thanks
Yeah,
very much.
Just one thing. I think the whole point is, as Mr. Bartman said, it only accommodates 80 people. And that's still tight. We're talking only 3,000 square feet. And that's my concern. We've been without power for 6 days. When you're talking families with children that can't get a hotel room, no place to go, elderly people with various issues, 80 is not enough, and the parking is a problem down there. So I'm just saying that we've been fighting for this for 5 years. We have had major events that have caused great disruption with sub-zero temperatures. And I believe that, if this is a short-term fix, but with a commitment that it's going to be at the community center, a gymnasium is perfect for these kinds of needs. And it will have a generator, and apparently showers are very cheap to install. So I would urge you to reconsider, because I don't think you want to lock the doors if we exceed capacity and we need more than 80 spots for people to come in. I think people would use it. There were a lot of people that were in the homes for nights, in the dark, in 40 degrees, because they didn't want to go to a regional shelter. And if we had had it, they would have been.
Ms. Gibbs, thank you. You've had 5 minutes and then plus, so I appreciate your comments, and we'll take those into account.
Thank you, that's what I'm asking.
Thank you. Mr. Waters is next, but then, excuse me, ma'am, I'm sorry, Mr. Waters has been waiting, and then you could stand up and use the microphone right after him, though.
Don't get up too quickly.
I can get back up when it's your turn.
Right.
I guess I got up too soon. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very informative. I have 3 questions. Is it possible to provide a ballpark number of what it would cost to build a 6,500 square feet facility on this location?
Certainly. You mean right now?
Well, just, I said a ballpark figure.
Yeah,
No one will hold you.
That's like asking someone to
Yeah,
negotiate against
I know.
themselves. I don't think it's fair to the community to throw ballpark numbers around. If there was ever a consideration for a smaller size facility, we would need to right-size it for the site and look at all of the areas for program needs, and then we could provide an estimate for that. But throwing numbers around this evening would not help anybody.
But using your $800 a square foot basic construction cost and applying it to 6,500 square feet would come up with a little over 5 million, to which a lot would have to be added. So it's a substantial different number.
Forgive me for interrupting.
All right, I withdraw. I won't.
Yeah,
He doesn't want to.
Well, no, but there's a history here that started out with a recommendation from the Bargman firm, and that number was over 15,000 square feet,
Right.
based on needs expressed to them from this community, and that's been reduced by 30% down to where we are now. And if you take another reduction for dedicating adult daycare out of the existing space, that's another 7%. There's been a substantial reduction from the needs that were originally discussed. So I mean, I appreciate your math, and it has a surface appeal, but it doesn't take account of a history of needs assessment and the response as a matter of design from the design and OPM team.
But the other item in that history was consideration of what would be necessary at the community center, and that, I believe, was a smaller one, although it never got off the ground. And that was the reason I asked about that number. I didn't just pluck it out of thin air. And I just wanted to know what kind of order of magnitude could be involved. If I could just finish.
Oh, no, please, absolutely.
My second question was any evaluation made of any other municipal buildings in Chatham for an evacuation center before choosing this one?
No, there has not been an assessment of the ability to use another municipal building for that. The goal here was to try to accomplish as much as possible within this building without impacting the budget.
The third thing I had was just a personal note, purely my individual opinion. I had visited the senior center about 7 years ago with a group of people, and it was a very depressing place, frankly. I think that, I doubt that the town has put money into it in the intervening 7 or 8 years, and it's probably more depressing. I think really it has to be torn down, and you have to find a way to build something the right size, the right location. You have 2 or 3 town-owned or town-available parcels that you can do it. But you have to find some way to just replace it and give a very large senior population someplace that they can make use of. Just a personal opinion.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your thoughts. Mr. Oppenheim? Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, I'm not doing well here. The lady here,
I just have a question on Chief Dubano. Are there some of the churches within the town of Chatham that are preparing that they could shelter people and feed them and keep them warm because they have generators and large parish halls? And aren't some of them working on doing something like that?
Yeah, we have worked recently within the past 6 months with 2 different churches in town, First Congregational and also Redemption Rock, on, I'm sorry, St. Christopher's, not First Congregational, on looking at their buildings and what they can offer, and you know, what infrastructure changes they might need to make at their facilities. The churches don't have any obligation to the community, however. It would, you know, we are working on assisting them with training, the relevant training they might need to open up personal care sites, potentially shelters, but the fact of the matter is they reserve the right, if they wanted to limit that to their parishioners, that sort of thing. So, you know, ultimately the obligation, we've been fortunate to have good partners with Barnstable County who have provided for regional shelters, but ultimately the obligation does come back to the town to provide sheltering. So this is a good opportunity. If this building to move forward, the feasibility is there to build in what needs to be built in to provide some sheltering.
thank you. Mr. Oppenheim?
Hi, David Oppenheim. Just a couple things. I've lived here for over 50 years now. I've been a business owner here, a lot of construction and development. I was on the committee with Sam Strybert when we developed this building and the police station, so I'm familiar with municipal projects and things like that. I was skeptical about this site originally and was on the part of the committee that studied alternate sites. And The alternate site, which was Stepping Stones, which looked at the time, was no longer under consideration, and the good news is it's going to be for housing. So I think that's even perhaps a better use for that particular site. So I'm not going to sit here and talk about, there's been a lot of questions of why and a lot of detail and stuff. I'm going to talk about why this should be done and why it's necessary to do it. This new building will be efficient. It's going to be a bright, great place to go for people to go to. The attention to detail and wide open spaces is going to be inviting. For those people that just talked about the existing places, I wouldn't use the word inviting other than the people that work there. As far as the ongoing costs, as far as the building costs will be, I would probably guess they're going to be less if we were paying proper maintenance and things for the existing building. And for us to do anything to the existing building would be hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not into the low millions, and that would still make it an uninviting place because you're never going to change the layout or anything to make it efficient. This is a great design. Adult daycare is in there. You could argue it could be 500 square feet less or something like that. If you took something like that out of it, you're taking out the cheap space. It doesn't change your systems or anything else. I assume there are warranties on the work like there are on most construction sites. So whether it's HVAC, we're not going to be looking at problems. The solar element, when somebody was talking about electricity, I have solar power on a lot of my buildings and invest in. This is going to be great. It's going to be an extremely energy efficient building. We're no longer going to have to pay the cost for a declining building, as I just said, and put lots of money into it to make something that still will not meet the needs of our seniors. We're talking about whether this emergency location is adequate for the whole town. Maybe it isn't. We don't have any now. We have no place, if I'm correct. There's not an emergency evacuation center right now. Some is better than nothing. We might not have, this may not service the whole community, but it's going to service a lot of the community, and hopefully we won't need to use it. Also, 193 for housing. Nobody's even brought that up. And to me, everybody wants to know what kind of housing. I don't care what kind of housing. I just care that it's going to be housing. We'll have lots of time to figure it out. There's lots of different things to be done, whether it's all affordable, whether it's something that a developer comes in and he has to put restrictions on it. Provincetown just did something, and I don't know if it would be appropriate here with a developer's doing 40 units. It's all rented year-round, guaranteed. That's deed restricted for year-round rental housing. Maybe we do something like that. We have capable people here that are studying these things. We have a new housing coordinator. I'm not sure of the proper title. And we'll have plenty of time, 2 years at least, to figure out how we're going to approach this thing. But again, we need housing. We need affordable. We need attainable. We need any kind of housing. There's huge support by the Friends and the Council on Aging. Was asked to join the board of the Friends, and I'm doing it, and I'm learning a lot about what the Council on Aging does, and they've committed to raise $1 million. The $1 million is to continue the work that they've always done, which is for programs and enhancements and some of the things that will make things even better, some of the things that you don't put into a budget like this. And I think it's a safe place. I mean, people questioned about the traffic and things like that. I think we now know, after years of arguments, how well the Rotaries are working in West Chatham. It's safe. I have a business there that brings big trucks and things down and stuff. We never have a problem. There hasn't been any accidents they know of. It's a great place to have it. And I think the combination of, and some people, there's been discussions on the $1 million that the Friends are going to raise, that there's a certain amount of commitments, soft commitments. These are not soft commitments. There's approximately $400,000 in commitment. The only soft part is this has to be voted for. So I have looked into this from day one. I have fought about the sites and things. This is the right place. It's the right time, and it's time to get this done. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir, I think you're next.
Hi, I'm Peter Metz. I reside here part of the time, the most delightful time. I also reside in Needham. I live, in fact, I'm at 112 Indian Hill Road North, which means I'm a block away from here. And I've been a homeowner in Chatham for 27 years now. I finally made it to senior status. I've used the senior center a number of years. I plan to stay as a senior for a long time. And I want Chatham to have a new, modern senior center that serves the community well. And I think we need to think of it as an investment in the future and not nickel and dime it to death and second guess it to death. And I've watched this drama go on for several years in agony. So it's time to move it. I don't think there's any better thing to do, but I do have some questions. The other part of the year, I'm a resident of Needham. You folks did the Needham Center? Did I gather that? Okay. I'm familiar with that. That's a very fine senior center. I've used it numerous times. The town makes good use of it. So my first question, and I'll rattle them all off and then you can take them whatever order you want. So my first question is, tell us what lessons you learned from building Needham that I could relate to, because it's been there, I think, in use for about 10 years now. Second question is solar panels. If I heard you correctly, this is a solar panel ready building, but why in the world aren't we going ahead with it? Why not do it at the same time? I'm sure there are cost savings for doing that, and get on with it if this is going to be an energy efficient building. And I asked you this, but I know it's not your decision. And then my third question is, you talked about designing for the future, and I think that's extremely important in a facility like this. We're going to have this facility for the next 30, 40, 50 years. So what features are built into it? What considerations did you make about things you can foresee possibly happening, or maybe for sure happening in the future, that are incorporated into your design philosophy and into your design?
I'll answer the solar, then you can go there. I'll start with the solar.
Okay.
As far as the solar panels go, the reason that we're making it solar ready is because the town already is a partner of the regional collaborative that provides solar systems at no cost to the town. So it makes more financial sense to use that arrangement rather than paying an electrical contractor to install the solar system.
Yeah.
So that's pretty standard these days. We've done it in many communities where it's solar ready, and then the collaboration, no matter where it is, you find that the systems are provided.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. So does it mean that it's very likely that when this building goes up, there will actually have solar panels on it?
Well, I can say that we'll begin the planning process for that. The building will be designed for it, so the solar panels can be installed very easily. And we can certainly put that as part of our track to have it ready and solar ready and solar system installed by the time we open it.
Because the town is trying to show all of us how to do that by putting solar panels on this building. The building was built too long ago to put them on at the beginning, but I think this is a chance for the town to show off that we want to lead into the future and encourage people. I'm studying, examining, asking for bids for solar panels for my home, and I hope we get to use this facility to demonstrate that to some more citizens. Thanks a lot.
Very good point. I appreciate it.
I'm not going to belabor the point, but the one thing that we learned from Needham, I talked about the distance of parking spaces to the front door.
Yes.
And in Needham, as you know, they had a similarly difficult time finding a site for their building.
Oh, yes.
And we're in the middle of a municipal parking lot.
Right.
It's not an ideal site. The distance that was negotiated was 175 feet, which it appears in Needham, most residents would like to drive their car into the lobby and then park and then get into the building.
That's right.
So we have lowered, with our traffic and parking consultant, that travel distance from the car to 125 feet, which is what we're finding in Needham is the more accessible.
Okay, that's really the principal one, okay. All right, so then my third question is, what about the future? What about the future have you designed into this building? What are you anticipating?
I think that as you saw in the pictures, the spaces are very general, can be adapted over time. And that multipurpose room, there's not a lot of different shapes, there's not a lot of specificity that will make it impossible to adapt those rooms in the future. I also think that wood frame buildings are much easier to adapt over time than concrete and steel buildings, so that was another decision. But
So flexibility is one of the things you've built into the design.
Sir,
That's correct.
we're approaching 6 minutes.
Thank you
so
very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm going to call on Ms. Freeman, who's been patiently waiting online, and then go to Ms. Burke after that. Ms. Freeman?
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to comment. I'm Gloria Freeman. It seems that you have done and are doing everything possible to get people to vote for the COA at 1610.
Gloria, can you speak up a little bit? They're having a hard time hearing you in the room here.
Oh, I hope this will work. I'll go back to what I was saying, that you're doing everything possible to get people to vote for the COA at 1610. I'm sorry to say that it isn't working for me. I am more concerned than ever, concerned about the prospective cost and scale of such a facility, especially with so many challenges facing the town: water, wells, sewering, waterfront projects, among others, as well as the prospect of the unknown challenges, which could have an adverse impact on the community. There is nothing that you can do that will make the COA at 1610 palatable to all. With its excessive two-story building on a challenged lot, or to erase the disrespect shown for voters by not accepting as binding their 3 previous town meeting votes in opposition to this proposal. It appears that the numbers have been estimated to keep the total project costs below $11 million, unless we want shower rooms and a room for cot storage. Personally, I would not want to drive to West Chatham seeking shelter on a snowy or icy night and turn into that sloped, narrow driveway. I hope now that we know such a facility is possible, our select board will reconsider the community center for the purpose of a building that could be opened in case it is needed in a bad storm or emergency. The number of townspeople who can be accommodated at 1610 in case of an emergency is very limited. Instead of making a new COA more appealing at another location, it's getting worse. First, with the daycare center. We now know that Orleans can accommodate our needs. Second, with an emergency evacuation shelter, which has many deficiencies, as pointed out by a previous speaker, but which would fit so well into the community center. We do have options to 1610. One could be a fixed price addition at the community center. Another is the Stony Hill current COA site, although we really should not be building new buildings when we have underutilized space with other possible empty buildings on the horizon. For example, the elementary school. Excuse me. During Bob Duncanson's farewell address, he mentioned that he would have liked to have more money for the wastewater project. But he said, and I'm quoting, "The town had other things it has wanted to do." the COA, the police station, and he mentioned other projects. We can't be a town without priorities, especially when so many of us are on fixed incomes. And these priorities should serve the entire community, not just a small group of users. Dr. Duncanson also warned that PFAS could be a bigger problem we have to face, one of those unknowns we should be ready for. We need to be clear-eyed about our needs and prepared for emergencies, rather than spending $11 million plus, and we all know it will be more than that, for the proposed COA at 1610. I think I understand how much you want this approved, but please be reasonable and exercise fiscal caution in what you do, and thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Freeman. Pat?
I promise to be brief. Hello, my name is Pat Burke. I am the chairperson of the Chatham Council on Aging Board of Directors. And my comments are really directed toward Mr. Waters, who I hope is still here. Yes? Oh, good. What I want you to know is we don't have a functional space. 1610, I'm a strong proponent of. But we have worked very hard to make the place friendly and useful with increased programming. I can't encourage you enough to come back so that you can see what we have now and think about what we could have in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. I'm a little new to this public forum. My husband and I moved down here from Walpole back in January, although my husband's been here since 1968. And I've been coming down here every year since 1980. I'm a little concerned. Gloria and Elaine said a lot of good points about what's going on here. But, you know, the community center keeps coming up, and thank you, gentlemen, for your beautiful presentation of what could be in the 1610. You did a very nice job, and I can see it would be a quality space. So I respect and honor what you guys did there for sure. But the community center, I might be a little all over the place here, but I'll try to be brief. First of all, you know, Gloria mentioned water. You know, we have 11, we're supposed to have 11 wells. We have 9, 2 that need to be fixed. That's going to cost $27 million to fix, okay? And the 9 others, you know, I don't know how old they are, but they're going to need fixing too eventually. So water is really important in this community. I mean, we struggle with the water in Chatham. I mean, I've heard about it for many years. So that's really a serious thing we need to address. And again, that's $27 million just to fix the 2 that still need fixing, and then who knows what else. So that really should be priority 1 on our list, okay, when it comes to the fiscal responsibility here. And then the sewer, okay, the sewer, there are 793, I could be wrong on these numbers, but I think I'm right, 793 people, homes have been added to the sewer system for $100 million. We have, is it 5,000 more to go, or close to 6,000 more to go? So the conservative estimate on that would probably be 300 to 500 million to fix the rest of the homes for that. We still have to fix that, okay? It's not done. And then we come back to the community center and additional affordable housing, which are still very important things. But the community center, I've been in there, and it's a beautiful space, and it's a relatively new space. It's bright, it's sunny, and you could probably fix that to address the issues at half the cost, you know, I'm assuming, to address the, you know, the emergency services we could put in there and have the community center as well. I mean, it's just a beautiful center. I mean, the place I come from, the community center, my hometown anyway, was teeny tiny, and, you know, there was no emergency services at the time. Again, I haven't been to my hometown for a few years, but it was really teeny tiny. It was really just like a box. So anyway, so the community center, from what I understand, there was a feasibility study done on it, but it was only for half the building. The back half of the building didn't really get studied. So that's really important. This, again, is 29,000 square feet. That's huge. That's huge and could accommodate a lot, okay? Lots of parking. There's lots of recreation space in the back that we could add on to if we needed to. It's close to the center of town where people can gather and just go to the shops and stuff. And then again, the cost, I think, would be certainly more reasonable than an $11 million project that, again, will probably go up. So just my thoughts on what's going on here. And I do love Chatham, and I thank you all for all you do. Thank you.
Thank you for your thoughts.
Mr. Chairman, can we have the name of the speaker?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, ma'am. You didn't mention your name when you.
Sorry.
No.
Paula Wiseman, sorry, North Chatham. Sorry
Thank
about
you.
that. I was a little
Thank you.
nervous.
Ms. Field.
Hi, I'm Nancy Fields, and I am on the Chatham Council on Aging Board. I'd just like to remind people that more than half of the voters who voted at town meeting voted for this project. So I'm somewhat confused about how the less than half who voted no believe that their position should take precedence over the majority of people who voted yes. So I understand that there are a lot of long-held, hard positions on this matter, but to me, the town has spoken. Okay, we fell short of the 2/3, but in terms of who is being listened to, in my opinion, and maybe it's because I'm in the majority, but in my opinion, the select board is listening to the majority of the voters who have said yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Holgren?
John Holgren, South Chatham, and obviously I think everybody, most of the people here know me and so on. Yes, I am a part-time resident, legal resident of Florida and so on, where, you know, evacuation centers are probably more used than up here. And as far as being in Chatham, okay, my family's been paying taxes to Chatham since 1949, so okay. Things I wanted to mention quickly was having this center in West Chatham, I think is a great idea because it's more geographically centered. So people like me who live in South Chatham, we don't have to travel downtown to get to something like this. And as far as if you want to have a space for during emergencies, yeah, okay. So that'll be for the South and West Chatham folks. You guys downtown, you can have the community center. You know, it's like we distributed. You don't have to all be in one emergency center. You can be scattered. Fine. There's been concerns about, traffic and getting in and out of there. I'm sorry. I'll come from the winter perspective. You guys don't know traffic. I live in Florida. I live on a quiet residential street that connects to a 4-lane divided road and a 6-lane divided road. So, up here, traffic, yeah. And down there, for instance, there's one store in order to get to. I have to go down and basically make a U-turn and go like 1.5 miles out of my way. So here, if you wanted to continually just make right turns into and out of this building, it's easy. I mean, you got a few hundred yards down the road, and you loop around the new roundabouts. I think that's a great solution there. So those are the things that I just wanted to throw in there to the mix. The other thing I noticed in the presentation though was and this is coming from an experience I had at a hotel in New Jersey. It was pouring rain. I mean, real, torrential rain. Well, on my car, I have an overhead roof carrier. Now, how am I going to get the stuff and suitcases out of that? You need a place to drive underneath to get at that. Well, this hotel did not have that. But it did have a little sort of covered walkway down to the edge of the parking lot. I looked at that and looked at the width of my car and went, it'll fit. And basically drove up the, underneath the covered walkway and so on, so I could have covered to get stuff out of the car. So I'm thinking, a reasonable, just a little thing is to have some sort of a roofed cover that goes out to the bus area, the drop-off area and so on, so that in this lousy weather you guys sometimes have up here, that people wouldn't get soaked getting in and out of a handicap situation especially. Doesn't have to be anything fancy, but something a deficiency I happen to notice. So that's all. Thanks much.
Thank you very much, sir. Ms. Timpson, you're next. Can I ask you to try to keep it to 2 minutes? We've got people behind you that haven't spoken yet.
Well, maybe
but
you
you're in
prefer
line.
if I did it in September.
Mr. Chair, can I just pivot to the online question? There was a question in the chat about the site, and the question was the land square footage is listed as 58,000 square feet. The rear of the lot, due to the slope and wetlands, is unusable. What is the actual usable site size? Do you have that information?
I don't believe we have that calculation, which would be just west of the retaining wall, but we can gather that information and get back to you on it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Susan, go ahead.
Hi, Susan Wilcox, West Chatham. I'm going to be short and brief. I've got a sign here that says "Be the One." I just want to answer a question in conjunction to the community center and the viability of a lot of different things happening there. The community center has no kitchen in the building. There's virtually no kitchen, so it doesn't. And so to adapt it to a lot of different purposes is a moot issue. And the cost to do that, I have no clue what it is. I bought my house over 20 years ago. I wasn't a senior citizen, I am now. I'm retired. I'm very much in favor of this. There's been a lot of studies over the years. If this had been approved 5 or 8 years ago, it'd be costing a lot less than it's costing now. More than half of the citizens in the town of Chatham are retired and need a facility. I've been over to Harwich to see what they have. I've seen pictures of other community centers that service their community a lot better than we do. We need this, people. And it's my hope that people come out and vote for it, and that's where I stand. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Levitt?
Thank you. I'm Rick Levitt. I live in West Chatham. A year ago, in August of 22, the select board here with the Council on Aging Board had a joint meeting, and presentations were made. I just want to read specifically related to the community center, which seems to be a perpetual issue here, some of the comments that were made a year ago about the community center. Joel Bargman noted that, and I'm reading from the minutes, noted that the use of green space behind the gym for recreational programs, and noted that eliminating the green space was rejected by the community in a previous design review. He also reviewed a possible addition to the west side of the building, but said it was doubtful that this would gain community support, as it would require parking in front of the community center. He commented about the scheduling conflicts and seasonal usage of the community center, the change to the historical look of the community center by adding parking to the front, and challenges of multi-levels at the community center. It's this kind of a level. And went on in that vein, and there was some agreement that a bifurcated model would be challenging to seniors and staff. That is to say, in the community center is one floor here, one floor there, one floor there. The determination of a previous working group that a 10,000 square foot facility would meet the needs of the community was noted at that meeting a year ago. The need to address false information spread by the community by those opposed to a new senior center was also noted. I could go on, but you get the picture. The community center has been studied and studied and studied. It's not a viable choice, and I would urge you all to accept. Maybe it wasn't your first choice, but what else do you have but 1610? Thank you.
So anyone else? Ms. Timpson, do you want to reconsider? You can have the whole 5 minutes if you want it. Oh, I'm sorry. Go, Ms. Stenberg, while she's getting organized, do you want to step up? This is Margaret Stenberg.
Margaret Stenberg, 912 Main Street. That I moved here, we've owned a home in Chatham since 1997, and we moved here permanently in 2001 in November 15th, and the first Thursday in December 2001, I went to the community center to take part in Busy Fingers. And I didn't know what Busy Fingers was. I didn't know what COA was. And when I walked with the walkers, which was run, the walking community was run by the community center, I was informed. So I decided to go and find out about knitting. And I've been using the community center since 2001. And so maybe it's not the prettiest site. Who was it who came? The fellow before who spoke and said that he went there once and that was it, 7 years ago. But the people are lovely, and there are many activities. I've gone for computer classes, we've gone for birthday luncheons, we've gone for movies, we've gone for lectures, and I'm sorry that some of the seniors don't use the community center when it's so available to everybody. And so, excuse me, Council on Aging. Anyway, but there have been so many things voted upon since we have moved here. The community center, the fire station, the police station, and I remember being at one meeting, I think Bob Stello and Eric Whiteley were both there, and David Oppenheim also. And they said, just let us we've got too many capital projects. Let us get the fire station done. Let us get the police station done, and then we'll work on the COA. And that was well over 10 years ago. We need a new COA, and I encourage everybody to vote for it.
Thank you very much. Ms. Timpson? Yeah, please.
Pertaining to the inclusion of a much-needed overnight 72-hour shelter during power outages, bravo to the Friends of COA for supporting this suggestion and requesting some realistic numbers. Now that we have the estimated cost for all required construction, totaling $103,200, this could be included on the special town meeting warrant as a retrofit at the community center rather than 1610. And bids and construction would be easily facilitated at a safer location less than a mile away from our fire and rescue station, the headquarters during emergency situations, whether storm or power outage. For both public safety and public health, this should be implemented at once. We have a new generator. It seems as if this could be achieved quickly and probably would get the vote. And it separates the worry of how it's going to work within 1610 and solves an issue that's been hanging around just as long as COA problems. One quick question relating to the size of 1610 at 11,000 square feet. In comparison to the Falmouth Bargman design, Falmouth has a winter population of 33,128 people. Chatham has a winter population of 6,200. Falmouth Senior Center is 17,000 square feet in size, with a basement for storage of 1,000 square feet. Why does Chatham require so much space for so few seniors? It's simple. The populations are dramatically different. Nobody has an answer. Well, think about that. Pertaining to 193 Stony Hill site, Gloria McPherson has made it abundantly clear that a 40B solution for this property is the likely route for any interested developer. That would require one affordable housing unit or apartment and the potential of 7 units at market rate rentals. Thus, this property would not offer the attainable housing that this board has so intently promoted, and only one affordable unit. And that unit will be subject to a statewide lottery system. Please clarify this plan for redevelopment of 193. If this board plans to construct more than one affordable unit on this site, please inform the voters that they will have to foot the bill. And please give us some kind of estimate of the cost per unit. After talking to many young families who work in Chatham but live elsewhere, it is clear that they are looking for a home they can afford to buy, not a rental apartment. The redevelopment of 193 appears to fall short of this board's expectations and has the potential to require tax increases. Please clarify these concerns. I'm sure Gloria McPherson, we've all heard her at the last meeting.
She's right over there. She's about ready
great.
to speak.
Okay. Answer.
So, I'm not really sure where you got the one unit. I'm fairly certain I didn't say that. Although I did say that it's likely that 40B would be used to develop the property specifically as a way to get an increase in density over what would normally be allowed by zoning. So when a private developer buys a parcel of land and does a development under 40B, they're required to provide 25% of their units affordable and 75% at market rate. There are other requirements, like they have to limit the maximum profit to 20% and other things that are particular to the law. But generally, when a private developer does it, that's when you see these developments of 25% of the units affordable, 75% market rate. It's an entirely different situation when it's a town-owned parcel and it's a town-led development that uses 40B for an increase in density. So any development that we do on a parcel of land that we own, and there are several, we have 4 properties in play right now. 193 Stony Hill Road may become our 5th parcel in play for the possibility of development of affordable and attainable housing. But when the town owns property and we put out a request for proposals for development, our goal is to have 100% of the units deed restricted. So we would want to see a development using 40B to increase density, but a development that's developed by, for instance, a not-for-profit developer that specializes in affordable housing, and we would want to see all of the units deed restricted at either affordable levels, say 80% AMI or below, but also potentially including some attainable levels.
But with only 8 units, which is what Mr. Oppenheim suggested was possible, he also suggested that the building would have to be torn down if a new COA was built there. So it sounds as if affordable would be a tear down and total reconstruction.
So that I can't really speculate on. I've seen the building. It doesn't look to be in great shape, but I'm not really qualified to make a structural analysis of that. It may be that it's more cost beneficial to tear it down and construct something new. I'm not really sure about that. That's something that we'd have to look at.
I'm
and
sure
it's
that's
nothing that
true.
we've put money into investigating now, because we don't know for sure if 1610 is going to pass and we'll actually have 193 Stony Hill for housing.
But with other options, I mean, why would a developer pick a piece of property that was so small that he couldn't really make very much on profit? Would we be donating the property to that developer to make an incentive? I mean, how would we appeal in a sort of nonprofit situation here?
So that's.
Excuse me, we're heading towards 7 minutes,
All
so
right,
let's make that
all
the
right.
last one.
Okay, sorry
Thank
about that. I mean, that's part of that public-private partnership that the town would do with the developer. In order to get these deed-restricted units, what the town could give is, expedited permitting, the value of the land so that they don't have to buy the land, and other benefits, potentially.
So thank you. I'm reluctant to get into a counterpoint, but I do want to ask Chief Tavano or the professional team to address the suggestion of taking, in effect, the showers and the storage unit and transporting it notionally into the community center and as a way of qualifying the community center as an EEC, an emergency evacuation center. And what I'm specifically focused on is the kitchen requirement.
Yeah, we did have, prior to my taking on the position back in 2019, an assessment was done, coordinated with MEMA and the Red Cross on the functionality of the community center and this building actually that we're in. And one of the notes was that it did have limited kitchen facilities at the community center, so there would have to be ideally some upgrades there as well. Of note, unless something's changed there that I'm not aware of, there's no stove or oven. It does have the capacity to put some warming ovens in there, but it's not a full service kitchen, which would be, ideally present for an emergency shelter.
And I take it same issue with food storage and that sort of thing, or maybe not. I don't know.
I mean, there is some refrigeration over at the community center now. As there's other areas that could be utilized potentially for storage of food. But like I said, in 2019, that assessment was done. Mm-hmm. There were some glaring deficiencies, some of which have been addressed. But yes, the sanitation requirements would need to be upgraded. The kitchen would have to be upgraded. So that it would be more than just taking that $100,000 cost estimate and just saying we can do.
Right.
It's $100,000 to do that there because it's new construction, and as you saw from the architect in the OPM, they're shifting a wall out from a gable. That's pretty easy to do when you're building with new construction.
Right.
I can't imagine that cost would be the same to do in an existing building.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. My name is Bill Cook. I live here in Chatham, have been since probably 2019. We had a house prior to that. So thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate it. I just have a couple of quick questions. I thought tonight was going to be a forum on asking questions, but it turned into, pro, con, pitches. But on the elevator itself, I was a first responder firefighter for 17 years as a volunteer. There's an elevator in this building. There's no dimensions on this plan at all for reasons that are, best not disclosed. But is this an elevator that can take somebody that's on a stretcher? It's all pure ADA because it's not clear here. Yes, absolutely. Okay, that's great. And putting the medical storage, the adult supportive daycare over the kitchen, which is likely to be the place of a fire, though it may, yes, we're sprinkled, and then having to go 40 feet down or down the stairwell. I mean, is that the best design, having been in a smoke-filled room and trying to get people down a stairwell or down to an elevator is not the most conducive thing to safety, but does the kitchen have to be right below some of the most, I would say, people with the most challenges? Is there a reason that was designed like that? And could it be changed? And then I have one final question, if you want to jump in on that. Is this a flat, the site plans show it's a flat piece of property. I thought it had a slope. Maybe it doesn't.
It's flat till you get to the back end of the parking lot, and then it drops down.
So when you come, so
But
just,
everything on the site is within a 2% slope.
okay, so when you come in and drop people off, there's nothing
It's
more than
flat.
2%?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great, all right. And then if you want to jump in on that.
I mean, the kitchen, the adult care room is to the left, the kitchen's to the right downstairs, so they're not directly over each other.
Well,
It's-
okay.
It's on the second floor. You know, I mean, as I mentioned, there's other issues with where you put the adult care. So that's a question that comes up on many projects, and the consensus has been,
Okay.
where is it best safe for those residents is usually where they can't get out and wander as easily.
On your cost estimates compared to actual bid price chart, there's no dates on here. Are any of these post-COVID, or are these all pre-COVID, other than the one you mentioned was on the cusp of COVID?
Brockton is current, it's just started construction.
Okay, so it just started?
That's been bid 6 months ago. It's, Falmouth was.
Wait, how is it below, how did it come in below when it just started?
Because the bids came in below what the
Oh, but these aren't
estimate
actuals, okay,
was. Well, they are actual. The bid's actual where the cost came in.
okay.
And then Falmouth was finished right at the COVID time. Situate was finished at the end of COVID, so that's been open for a year. Sandwich has been open for a few months. Pembroke is in construction, as is Sudbury.
Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying that. And then finally, I just, I'm not for this for reasons other than the questions. I just personally believe taking on more debt, and, you know, I've written a little letter once about debt service that the town is facing as a percent of the operating budget continues to balloon up, and that doesn't include even the debt that was approved in the town meeting, the incremental 30 million plus. So I'm already a little not too wild about it, just from a cost perspective, and I appreciate what you guys have done. I guess, and then the only other thing I would ask is for the select board or the COA people, what happened to the building? How did the current facility decay to the point where no one even wants to go there? And then what's to prevent that from happening again, other than we're sorry and we won't let it? Because we have other facilities in town that have also experienced a certain amount of decay. The old Harbor Road thing that the town's inherited, the check-in at the transfer station. I mean, what types of costs are going to be put into overall maintenance? There's construction here, but there's no operational cost included.
Okay, thank
we
you.
have an answer?
Appreciate your comments.
All right, thank
We
you.
appreciate it. Thank you. And I'm going to designate Ms. Sprague as our valedictorian, delivering the final notes or comments or questions or whatever.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Thank you for hearing me. I'm a member of the Town Finance Committee, but I want to make it clear that I'm definitely not here representing our committee. What I would like to say is that the Finance Committee will certainly be taking this issue up. We're already working on it, and we're working on both what we can expect in operational cost increases, depending on the rate of inflation, which we are figuring to be between 3 and 5% over the next few years, and we'll probably settle our recommendations on something like 3.5% increase in the operational costs, including whatever new employees will have to add, some, maybe a couple half-time, maybe one, but we're not. I just want to make you sure that we will discuss this openly in our meetings before town meeting, and we will come up with some information on operational costs and the debt service. Even though our AAA raters give us the assurance that our financial picture looks good for the foreseeable future, but they're watching us all the time too, that we will have a complete report on what the debt is. We'll be talking future water costs, sewer costs, and how this impacts our ultimate cost debt 20, 30, 40 years from now. So that's all I just want to say. We will be also taking this up and giving a final recommendation, a vote and a final recommendation for town meeting when it's come.
Thank you, Ms. Sprague.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I appreciate it. Oh, there's a gentleman in the back. We'll go ahead.
Hi, my name is John Huther. I don't have a problem with a new senior center. Never have. Always thought they should have something
Can you
new.
come a little closer to the microphone? I think people
Always
are-
thought they should have something newer, more modern, maybe a little bit larger. But the thing that's really getting to me is we're going for a fourth vote. It's been turned down 3 times. Now, if it gets turned down again, are we going to vote again? Are you just going to jam this down our throats for the rest of our lives if you don't get it? And I really would like an answer on that. And getting to you about maintenance of the building, I remember when the fire department came up and we need a new fire department because, well, the roof leaks. The roof's been leaking for years. It's created black mold, but nobody fixed it. So we tear it down and buy a new one. Thank you for bringing that up. So here's a couple of questions for you about the maintenance of the building, the new building, and how many times you're going to jam this down our throats.
Appreciate it. We'll take that into serious consideration. Thank you.
Yeah, I
Thank
somehow
you.
doubt that, but thank you.
So if there are no other questions, I'm just going to briefly offer the Select Board an opportunity to comment if they wish. I know at least one of us does, and so I'll call on you, Mr. Nicastro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just really wanted to talk about debt because the purpose of this forum was to discuss dollars and cents. And I did have a conversation with the town treasurer and the town manager about this, and I know the treasurer's here, so I'm going to ask if she can come and answer a couple of questions which I asked her to be prepared for. I will say, while she's coming up, I did speak with the chair of the Finance Committee today, and apropos of what Ms. Sprague was just saying, I have complete confidence in the independent judgment of that committee to come forward with a good, solid analysis of the operational costs and the debt issues that are associated with us, having served on that committee myself previous to my service on the Select Board. But I did want to bring up the subject of debt just to clarify the issue, because I read Bill Cook's letter, and Bill's a member of the Water and Sewer Committee and a very good member, and others have talked about debt associated with this particular project, not just this year but in previous years. So people have talked about Chatham ranking, number 1, number 2, number 3 per capita with the highest debt level of any of the 351 cities and towns in the Commonwealth. I understand we now rank number 6, but isn't it true that, I'm asking a leading question obviously, but the denominator, the numerator is the total debt to which the town is committed, but the denominator that the state uses for Chatham, the Department of Revenue, I believe, is the year-round population of 6,000. Is that correct?
That is correct. My name is Sharon Drown. I'm the treasurer
sorry.
and tax collector for anybody that doesn't know me. But yes, Dean, you're correct. So the Department of Revenue has what's called the Division of Local Services, and I just speak this now because some people aren't aware of that. It's a good place to get information on the municipalities and various financial standings in case anybody is interested in looking that up. So the Department of Revenue looks at the year-round population, not the seasonal population, which ultimately has a swaying effect when they do their reporting.
So if we were to include the seasonal population, and this board provides a figure, and most recently of 33,000 to the Alcoholic Beverage Control Commission for purposes of liquor licenses as the population of the town of Chatham. We're not going to be anywhere near number 6 if
No.
that were. And I think you told me this morning that Standard & Poor's, which is our bond rating agency, does take into account the year-round population because the town, I would assume they do this, because the town is building infrastructure for the 33,000 people that make use of our facilities
That is
and our town structures. We still have a AAA bond rating.
That is correct.
In all the years I've been on this board, I'm in my 9th year, that we've consistently had a AAA bond rating, so that's not hurt us. The last question I wanted to ask is, the town, under guidelines or if not regulation of the Department of Revenue, has a certain availability, a certain debt limit availability. What is that? I think I know what it is, but
Yeah,
you could
the
tell
debt
me.
limit, from what was provided to me by the finance director, there's a certain equation that's used. It's at 275 million right now, approximately. That's rounding.
And currently, what is our commitment? for
Our
debt?
overall committed debt, active debt, current debt right now,
Yes,
our authorized unissued
authorized.
is, authorized unissued is approximately 80 million.
Okay. Do we have authorized and unissued? I didn't ask you that question earlier, so I don't know the answer to it.
So we have committed amounts to the Mass Clean Water totaling, I can get that for you, our authorized and issued. So right now, our authorized and issued for the Mass Clean Water is approximately 40 million. So the total authorized and issued right now is 85 million. It's 85,863,000.
Does that include the 40 million that's
Yes.
unissued?
That is entire.
Okay, so there's a big delta, to use Mr.
Yes.
Dykens's CPA lingo, between, I'm a lawyer, not a finance guy. Thank you. You should be, Mr. Dykens. Thank you, Sharon. I just really wanted to get that information out there. People can assess it however they wish, because it's important for us to understand. And Stephen Daniel told me today that his subcommittee, which is looking at this, is going to take a look at this debt issue and report on it. They are almost completed with their information. I appreciate Ann Timpson bringing that to my attention. I haven't really watched their meetings on this other than a little bit today after Ann brought it to my attention that they were looking at, they were close to finishing their work. They want to get the final data and information, and they will issue a report pretty quickly, which they feel will be reliable. And so I think we should all, take a look at what they have to say. They certainly will have their own recommendation on whatever articles are on the warrant for town meeting. But thank you, Sharon. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for letting me bring it forward.
Thank you, Dean. Shireen, you have anything to say?
I'm good.
Well, I can't help myself, Michael. No, I just first of all, Dean, that's the point about the denominator is an excellent one. I'm so happy you brought that up because, folks say we're loaded up with debt and we're number 6 in the state. That's totally erroneous. I don't know where we actually rank, but it's much, much lower than that. And your point about 85 million over 275, that about 31% of our possible debt service we have outstanding. So we have huge headroom. I'm not saying we borrow like drunken sailors, but we have headroom in the town. We're able to borrow the money, and with our AAA rating, we can certainly borrow it at incredibly low rates. That being said, I'd like to thank Mike as vice chair this evening for this evening. I think this has been very valuable for the folks here and online. It's very, very informative to me. It's been very informative as a select board member to hear everybody speak this evening. I don't agree with everybody, but it's very interesting to hear the various points of view. I thought, and I thank Rick and Joel, you guys did a great job. That presentation was tight, and it was really well done. I want to clarify one major point that I want folks to come away with. Your point about the $11 million, if you get bids back that are north of 11 million, what do you do? We're not going to take anything over 11 million. We're capped at 11, correct? I'm asking a question.
What do we decide?
Go to redesign, okay. All right. So we have to take costs out if we don't get anything that's 11 million, okay. All right. So I thank you. You guys did a great job, I thought, and in particular, there's some really, really great points here this evening, and I thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say one other thing. I appreciate your comments, Jeff. I think the job that you, Rick, and Joel did tonight was superlative. You covered all the bases. It was very professional. I was genuinely very impressed. I also want to thank Jill, who worked through the last several days or perhaps a couple of weeks in getting ready for this. This is kind of a little bit of a hybrid, and I'm along with Jeff. I didn't agree with everything that I heard, but I certainly appreciated everything I heard, and I think it was a good conversation. And with all due respect, sir, can we let it go at that?
You brought up a new matter that I wanted to get clarified.
Be quick.
The debt. Did I hear, and the treasurer is still here, that reputable organization says that the town could bear a load of 240 million debt?
275.
Thank you. And our current debt is 85? By the maximum way you would count it?
Give it, Sharon, do you want to?
That's a larger safety margin than I've run into in engineering any project. Congratulations, Needham, and congratulations, Chatham. People ought to quit worrying about this and get on with making this place a better place. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to just confirm the two numbers?
Yes, they are confirmed.
Okay. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, although we can't do that. Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Dyken.
Aye.
And the chair says aye. Thank you very much. Thank you. Good night, Chatham.